We are on air, and now it seems it's roughly 3 seconds with my experience lately.
I want a countdown. I just want numbers that work backwards from a higher number to a lower number so that Google can tell us when this thing is actually live. That's all I want.
True, I agree, but I think it's an issue with connecting with your servers. It might be that, or at least it might just be going. You should just go ready, 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 on air, in.
Okay, so here's the thing that bothers me whenever people talk about, well, it's probably like servers and it's inconsistent. Maybe one person's ping is slower than another's or something like that. Is that you could buffer up that video until everyone is at the same point and then go, now that everyone's here, 3, 2, 1, go, and it's actually live. I mean, that's the thing that also bugs me about stuff like audio recording. Because for most people who aren't in the recording industry, we still use copper for long-distance remote recording. So if talent's in New York and I'm recording in LA, we use ISDN. It's phone lines, essentially. And no one has seemed to figure out, like, well, if we just use the internet but then buffer appropriately, we could probably have a similar recording solution. But it's the same thing here. It's just sort of like, and surprise, you're live on the internet. Go.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess it is. But hopefully they will fix that. Welcome, guys. I know of course, every week we always discuss about this, but welcome. Welcome to the weekly hangout. Of course, with me here is Some Gadget Guy, Juan Bagnell from somegadgetguy.com. How's it going, man?
It's going well, man. We started just a little bit later, which means I'm a little bit more awake and obviously a little crankier, which is great. It's always a perfect way to start a tech chat show.
Yes, we have a lot of things going on, and we also have some comments there from LouRod76. But before we do that, I am going to announce the winners of giveaways. I had a bunch of giveaways this week, and of course the weekly giveaway we have with the weekly hangout. So I'm just going to run through all of them, and I'm actually going to start with the weekly hangout giveaway, which I have all these stuff all around me put together. So basically, if you chimed in on the weekly hangout last week, the prize was the SteelSeries rival mouse and, of course, the quick mouse pad. And the question was very simple. What anime or book or animation or manga would you would like to see be adapted into a movie? Because we just talked about movies and anime mostly last week anyway, which was fun. And the winner was Bucket O'Fail. Which is an interesting name. So you basically win the mouse pad and the
mouse.
The mouse, yes. I know. I thought this was the mouse. I was like mouse pad and the.
It's like he got confused. He said mouse pad while holding the mouse box.
I mean, you win. I mean, he basically talked about a couple of books, how in depth the story is, but also I do like. The funny thing is, I know the character. That's his little image tag. I can't remember the name. But it's from an anime called Hunter x Hunter. I saw that. I was like, this dude understands pretty well. So
this dude knows what's up.
So congratulations on that. So the next winner, and then the next case is now basically I did a bunch of case reviews and I was giving away cases, and all you have to do is comment, subscribe, like all that stuff. So I'm just gonna rattle through them. Pink Lover 460 wins the LG G3 Ultra Hybrid case. So nice. Pink Lover 460. Mark Anthony Smith wins the LG G3 Ultra Fit case. Then we have gcforreal wins the LG G3 Thor case from Verus. And Daniel Vargas wins the Spigen iPhone 6 4.7-inch slim thin fit case from Spigen. So I'll have the list of all the winners in the description after the video. So if you're wondering if you won, basically just check the description. We'll have that. We also will have another hangout this week. Sorry, not hangout contest this week. And this week I'm giving away another iPhone 6 case. You can't see that clearly. Here it is. Yeah, I was trying to show you the label, but it says iPhone 6. I don't know if you can see that there. No, you can't.
Man, so I mean, like, especially like you were playing with Verus and Spigen. Like those case manufacturers are way ahead of the curve right now. I mean,
yes, they are.
That Spigen has out is pretty darn attractive. So.
Yeah, so you can definitely win this easily this week. You get your case ahead of time before the iPhone 6 comes out, all the way in September, around the 20th. So, hey, I'm hooking you up really early with iPhone 6 case right here. So we'll have the question at the end of a hangout. Again, it's going to be something easy and simple since we don't like to stress people out whatsoever. So let's jump into topics for this week. First one, and which is kind of shocking, Microsoft is taking Samsung to court. They're suing them.
Yeah, and you guys know or should know by now if you've watched our shows at all how much we absolutely love getting into the detailed minutia of a good tech versus tech lawsuit.
Yeah, pretty deep stuff. From all indication, it looks like basically Samsung has negated to pay Microsoft for the licensing agreement they had.
And this is what I don't understand is every piece of information I've heard coming out of the Samsung camp doesn't really explain why they've stopped paying this license.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, part of their excuse was, I mean, like, part of the timing on this is they seemed to stop after the acquisition of Nokia was announced.
Yeah.
So, does that mean that they feel that there's some conflict of interest in Windows phones that's preventing them or making it unfair competition-wise for them to utilize Android while they're also working on their own in-home OS with Tizen? Still doesn't negate why they should leave the licensing agreement that they've had. I do not understand what their reasoning is in vacating this, and it's a pretty regular joke. I mean, like we joke about this a lot, that Microsoft makes more money off of Android than they do off of Windows Phone.
Yes.
And this is one of the reasons why. But I really do not understand Samsung's position on this one.
Yeah, it seems very strange because their main argument is, at least publicly, is that Microsoft has an unfair advantage with Nokia in-house, right? And the funny thing is, when this suit was brought to court, Samsung did not file that argument in there about Nokia. They didn't. Microsoft basically said, hey, we're suing them because we had an agreement, they stopped paying, and we would like them to pay up. And it's been pretty much at least 6 months. And it looks like Microsoft has tried to remedy this over the last 6 months, and Samsung has just basically refused. I mean, at least from indications. Not sure if that's just the proper case. And Samsung hasn't necessarily stated, they've stated, PR-wise that, well, Nokia, acquisition really puts on a fair advantage, but in the filings, they just didn't put that in there. So
yeah, I don't get it, because it doesn't seem to be based on the technologies involved. It's not Samsung saying that these licenses are invalid, that Microsoft doesn't have a legal right to assert their control over their IP and to negotiate this kind of fee. It really does. And please, someone who's maybe a little bit more versed in law in this situation, maybe drop us a comment on this video, because I'm really at a nonplussed at how to express what Samsung's position in this case is. To me, it seems like they're basically just saying, well, we don't want to.
Yeah.
And they're trying to walk away.
And that's very true. And the funny thing is that the licensing also protects them from Apple.
Right. And that's another very important note, because those individual technologies, so now it's like Samsung, because they've been fighting Apple all on their own, now by walking away from Microsoft might actually make them a bigger target again for a future Apple lawsuit.
Yeah, and it's very true. Sorry, go ahead. No,
I was just going to say, just because I think Apple would be in a more nervous position going up against Microsoft or Google. I mean, that's what they've shown in the past, is that they're totally happy to go after HTC, kick a man while he's down, but they're not so keen on going up against the companies that actually make the software that they claim is infringing on the iPhone.
Well, they really can't. I know Microsoft and Apple have an agreement that they can use each other's tech and not sue. So basically, I think part of that agreement also covers people who license with Microsoft too, which is why you've seen, especially the Chinese manufacturers, which Apple could probably easily squash quickly. Especially the likes of ZTE. ZTE was one of the first Android manufacturers just went up to Microsoft and was like, here's cash. please. We need
We would like
protection.
to be under your umbrella of
You
protection.
know, it's like The Godfather, and
Yeah, I was gonna say it's like going to the local mafia.
Al Al Pacino's like, yes, come, kiss my hand, kiss my hand. So I mean, I agree. It's very dumbfounding. I really have no idea why. And from all indications, almost everyone who's reporting this has really no clue either why why
Yeah.
Samsung is sort of negating this and forcing Microsoft to actually sue them to fulfill an agreement that they all had. So that one's a little trip.
And I guess I'm just sort of because Samsung with their reliance on Google, it puts them in an awkward position because I think Samsung as a company looks at what they do with the Galaxy and they feel that they bring more to the Android ecosystem than they get from the Android ecosystem. Then
Hmm.
that's why they customize their devices the way they do. And that's why we've seen them flirt with Tizen. I mean, we've got what exactly one phone and then the watches that have actually made it out in any kind of consumer. Well, has the Tizen phone actually even dropped in Russia, or was that still just is that
Um,
vaporware still?
I think that's vapor. There's
I think
nothing
it's vapor. But
official. I
but
mean, maybe a
we've
few
seen
people
them
might have it in hand, but nothing official, I
but
think.
we've seen them publicly discuss plans to release their own phone and their own phone
Yeah.
OS. And they used to have a pretty good partnership with Microsoft in trying to push the early versions of Windows Phone. And so now it seems like they're becoming a company without an ecosystem. Like they're sort of ostracizing some of
Everyone.
their. Yeah, I mean to a degree, and even even been interesting watching like some of the discussion unfold on our various YouTube channels when we start talking about phones like the Galaxy S5, and a lot of the comments that I get sort of feel a little like comments I used to get about the iPhone a couple years ago. That Samsung is starting to burn some of that goodwill, and now that they're the number one, they're becoming a really big target.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think Samsung has lost a lot of focus within the company, to strategize and say, how do we attack, our competition? And I
Hmm.
mean, we're probably going to pour out some wisdom for some of these companies, is that I see the ecosystem as being one where you can target it in various ways. You can either, if I was Samsung, I would clean up this mess that I'm doing left and right with all these scattered nonsense. That's how I look at it, because I mean, Tizen, maybe you could use it for your smartwatches, but for a smartphone, it's something that if you're having such a hard time to put it out, you might want to just kill it at some point. I would go the regular Galaxy strategy and then a Windows Phone strategy at low end. Maybe one a year, high end, or at least superb Windows Phone, if you want to put it that way. But Windows Phone should be my low end strategy, because we can see it's easy to make and cheap Windows phones.
Yeah,
And
it is. I think. I mean, because I don't disagree with you. I actually think that would be a really interesting way to sort of, especially for Samsung, we could look at Windows Phone as an entry level, Tizen as some sort of mid range solution, which is what we saw from the
Mhm.
Tizen phone that they released, and then you can continue on with Google for your high end,
Right.
Your Galaxy range of devices. But I also don't see where Samsung has actually, with all the talent at Samsung, that they've actually delivered on a good entry level device.
No, they haven't, because the problem with entry level devices is that their skin is so heavy that it just does not run on anything lower, which is why Windows Phone affords you to bring that, Microsoft doesn't allow any skins, but allows you to bring apps in there.
Hmm.
So everything that Samsung, the thing about Samsung that I don't understand with them is that if I'm going to bring an entry level Windows Phone, I can bring S Health, I can bring all those
Right.
different Samsung applications. And now that Windows Phone 8.1 Update 1, which is coming out in this month, is going to support touchless interface and things like that. I can
Right.
also bring all those Magic One features in there and throw it on the Windows Phone, and it will still probably operate very very well, and and then you can offer that at a low cost price. Remember, the technologies you've already built them over. All Windows phones are now recertified to actually use Android's hardware and also Android build characteristics, if you will. So bring it
Which
out.
we'll be talking about another example of that
Yeah,
in just a little
exactly.
bit.
Right. So bringing all of that over should not be a difficult situation. One of those things in mind, for instance, with Windows Phone Update 1, um, I think there was a filing saying to bring cover notification. What does that mean? We'll talk about that in a second with HTC and the smart cover that they have. And that's already Microsoft is throwing these things for their partners in there to help attract them. So I think Samsung should look at that, because right now there's a lot of devices, and the reason why I'm saying that is we have the Galaxy Alpha coming out, which is our next topic. And I have no idea why that device is coming out. Supposedly it's launching in August, and it makes no sense. If we
I mean, like, if we want to move properly over to the Galaxy Alpha, we should just move properly over to the Galaxy Alpha.
Yes.
I think Samsung is, again, we're talking about the #1 Android manufacturer, and we're talking about Android being the #1 ecosystem right now. The last quarter they pulled something like 80% of the smartphone market, while the iPhone was obviously way more profitable and probably one of the more popular single handsets. The Android ecosystem, no one would argue that it's steamrollering over everything right now.
Yeah.
So Samsung is, again, in a precarious position because their releases are timed in a way where companies like LG can exploit their timing. I think we saw this with the LG G2. The Galaxy S4 was a very good phone. The G2 was competitive with a lot of phones that came out this year. We didn't really realize it at the time how ahead of the curve the G2 was going to be, but you pick up the Galaxy S5 at the beginning of this year, and it doesn't feel like it's a tremendous step ahead of the G2. And now we've got the G3 out, and we've got all these marketing bullet points, kind of like the days when cameras were all sold based on how many megapixels they had. We've got like a bazillion dots on the screen. We've got this type of processor, and we've got this much storage. So Samsung can't let an entire product cycle, or I guess it would be half of a product cycle, go by with the flagship that's not competitive against the G3, even though I still think the Galaxy S5 is perfectly competitive against.
No. You see, but the problem with that flaw is that we know you're going to announce the Galaxy Note 4 in September, right, at IFA. Why announce a half sort of cool, not cool phone in August?
Oh, no, I don't disagree with you that I think it's a bad move. What I mean is all of that marketing and all of those suits internal who are looking at bar graphs and how Samsung recently got beat hard. Profit-wise over these last couple fiscal quarters. It's they're reacting. That's the problem. Like when we see companies that are usually innovative start reacting, that's not a good sign. It's what made me nervous about Apple. It's what's making me nervous about Samsung right now. And I don't think it's a good move, but they're doing this because they've got to recapture some part of the conversation on Android. And the easiest way to do that, which is what makes me frustrated about talking Android, the easiest way to do that is to come out with bigger and better specs. When you do that, you get headlines, you get blog post titles, you get YouTube videos, and even if it's almost exactly the same phone, but you put in a higher resolution screen, people are going to act like, oh, this is look at the G3 headlines. It's the king of the Androids. It's the best phone ever. Bah. And you're like, I don't think so. It's a very, very good phone. But this notion that you have one winner is a very flawed way of discussing technology. But it's one that Samsung is totally falling for right now.
I mean, yeah, true. I mean, I think the G3 is probably the best smartphone this year, and actually more for performance. I love the performance of that phone compared to every other device I've used. But the thing about the Alpha is that it comes up with a mixed bag of specs. So you have it at a 4.8 inch with a 720p display. 720.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I thought we left that and we thought we've all standardized 1080p, especially for a device like this, right? The name Alpha means top dog,
or it just means first. I mean, like the Alpha and Omega. It could just be. It's like when you say penultimate. It doesn't mean that it's the best. It means it's second to last.
Yes, exactly. And then it's got the Snapdragon 805 or the new Exynos chip. So chip wise, this thing has a really good chip in there. 16 megapixel camera or 12. I guess there are two variants. Maybe there's one international, one.
And this is another thing too, is when we're talking about devices that aren't actually in our hands as physical objects, is that a lot of this stuff is totally BS. It's totally suspect until it's real.
And then 32 gigabytes of storage, no external, which photographs from what I've seen from leaked photos looks like there's no external. I think most of the specs are correct except the display because most people are not sure where the display is. Those who've actually the EV leaks guys who've actually sort of gotten their hands on this stuff. Seriously, by the way though, how the hell does this guy get every device from every company
Well,
and
but I
leak
mean,
it
let's
out?
let's also be fair. Is that we're talking about EV leaks. We're talking about a guy that's often fooled too.
Yeah,
You
true,
know,
true,
like I mean,
true.
he went through what a string of like 4 or 5 rumors last month that were all totally not true. They were completely suspect.
I know.
So
I think EV Leaks is one guy who's been paid by everyone to leak properly and improperly. So they just do it on purpose to say, okay, fine, let's spin things out a little bit. Here you go. Here's what we have this week, and he just got a string of bad stuff that they gave him on purpose, because
maybe.
I mean, because to me it makes no sense, that one person. Why would every company
Right.
go to one
But
person?
then also, I mean, I also look at this. I mean, from his recent Twitter feuds with other tech people that I like, he's a petulant child that I would prefer people not give him any more traffic. But that's just me.
Yeah, I mean, true, but I mean, he's probably gotten to his head that since he gets it all the time, I mean,
Oh,
like a
that
lot
he's
of the
no,
time,
no, he totally does. He thinks he's a really big deal,
yeah,
and
yeah, he's
I
he's the
think
king of hill.
I think he's a resource for really shitty photos of phones that may or may not exist.
Oh well, actually, they're better than shitty. You remember back
Oh
in the
no,
at least he doesn't
that's
give us
horrible.
he doesn't give us a lot of blurry cam stuff though. I will say that the
That's what I
amount of
mean. It's like, what's the? I mean, like, especially when you're talking, oh, this is a rumored Samsung device. And you're like, it's a blurry photo of what could be a Galaxy S4. You know, like that's not news, people. That's not. It's not even a good rumor post or a good leak post. It's a blurry photo of a phone. I love doing it. You can do it yourself. All right. So just take a really blurry photo of your phone and then say, oh my gosh, it's something. It's the unicorn Galaxy S6,
six,
and
yes,
and
yes.
people will pass it along. I mean, that's what's so frustrating about how we talk about leaks and rumors right now is because most of it's crap.
Yeah, true. But I want to put this out. The Galaxy Alpha, guys, your thoughts. Throughout the hangout, just let us know what you think about Samsung supposedly releasing the Alpha, because the confirmation for the release has come from CNET, not necessarily EV Leaks. So
Right.
that to me is a much more, you know, um, legitimate
Well, I
source.
still I still have my issues with CNET,
Yeah,
but
yes, yes. But I would take that from them in there, considering Bloomberg is reporting that Note 4 is coming out on third, and Bloomberg, I can trust them much more than everybody else
that's true.
with that kind of information. But I wanted to just jump back to the Windows 8.1 update. That was also part of our discussion here this today. That's coming out on the 12th of this month, and
Hmm.
from ZDNet, this update was supposed to be a smaller update, but it looks like Samsung is actually packing that's Samsung. Microsoft is actually packing bigger features into this update, because there will not be a third update, and we'll be getting Threshold preview in January, which is very interesting. The reason why, even though this update is it's a service pack, really, service pack
Hmm.
2, but it means that things are going faster than I think they are at Microsoft. It looks like they are really pushing that whole one core ideology, pretty fast on. If eventually we're going to get Threshold in the spring, So I'm just, what are your thoughts on that?
No, I think it's a smart play on Microsoft's behalf because they had so much bad press at the early days of Windows 8. I
Oof.
think Windows 8 has grown into a pretty decent OS, even for some of the issues that they still need to work out for people who are exclusively mouse and keyboard users. Um, I think they've done a pretty terrific job of addressing some of those issues. But the problem with Microsoft is they also do a miserable job of communicating with their customers and with their fans. And then they always try and go top down. So, like, they'll go to really humongous news outlets and say, here, use this thing. It's going to be great. And then they're surprised when those news outlets totally pan them because it's easier to write a story about how Microsoft sucks than to actually review a product properly.
Yeah.
Um,
Case in point.
we don't have to backtrack all that because they eventually discovered that Windows 8 also they found out that it was quite elegant right before a new Surface was about to come out.
Yes.
So having some critical success with things like the Surface Pro 3 and with companies like Lenovo still supporting their ecosystem really really well. Uh, it's kind of like the Windows Vista Windows 7 debacle. When Vista first came out, it had some real problems, but if you ran it on capable hardware and you knew what you were getting into,
So,
it
yeah.
wasn't as bad as like Windows ME. um, but you have to cycle faster when the general conversation or when the general perception is this thing is fundamentally broken. And so many consumers still feel like Windows 8 is fundamentally broken. Um, that means you've got to get to a Windows 9 sooner, even though we all know in the tech community, I mean, if you're tech savvy at all, you know that Windows 9 is going to be Windows 8.2. It's not going to be some new, completely different architecture. It's not going to be
No.
some completely different skin. It's probably just going to do a better job of incorporating live tiles with the traditional desktop and letting you run apps in Windows instead of making all of your apps full screen. I mean,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff, it's a benefit, but that's not a new operating system.
No, it
That is
isn't. But
that is a
the
bullet point update to what we're already using.
big thing about nine is that nine is going to appear like three different flavors, and I think that is going to be huge when Office launches this fall on Metro, because the rumor and from what people have seen, just developers going through code, is that Windows 9 desktop will open up on desktop. Metro is there, but everything's opens up on the desktop, like
Right.
like that. On tablets and Windows Phone, it is all Metro. Then you can, so basically they want to still give you Metro, but then at least on the tablet give you that feel that you are on the tablet
Well,
rather
and
than
and that's good. I mean, that's what we've been talking about since RT first came out. I mean, like literally,
yeah.
if you go back and watch some of our earlier podcasts, it's I want a tablet that functions just like my phone. I don't need a desktop, but you have to keep the desktop because there wasn't a touch flavor of Office. You
Yeah.
had to use the old school traditional version of Office. And so once you get rid of the need for that, once you can roll out a Metro inspired or a touch optimized version of Office, there's no reason to keep the old school desktop on a 10-inch screen. Uh, Especially with like the updates to OneDrive, because the way that you do file management through
Oh, yeah.
OneDrive is really clean. I mean, it works really well.
Hmm.
So, especially compared to Android and iOS solutions. So, that is they're finally considering some of those ergonomic quirks of Windows 8, but that's still fundamentally, I mean, a skin update, not an operating system update.
Yeah. No, no, definitely true. But it'll be interesting to see how all that pans out. So
Now,
moving.
before we move on, real quick, the one thing that I did want to ask you about is, do you think we'll see a free version of Windows? Do you think we'll see Windows as a service like we see, how they're trying to push now subscriptions on top of things. So you can get your
Um,
kernel of Windows for free, but then you're going to be paying for services like OneDrive or Office to flesh it
Not
all out.
not yet. 2016. It depends on how well 9 takes off, I think. I think they want to give you that ability where Windows 9 becomes your all in all. When you can get people to buy into Windows 9, as in, the whole idea is, if Windows runs on all your devices, why change? Then
Right.
that's when you can now offer subscription services where at that point you now have to offer another tier higher than what Windows 9 needs to say, okay, if you're buying Windows, this is what you get. You're getting Ultimate. That's the standard. It's Ultimate. That's it. Done. Then
Mm.
everybody's getting Windows Starter Package or just regular Windows 9. That's it. There's Windows 9 Ultimate and Windows 9. And then with 9 Ultimate, you have to mix it in. So you have to get Office 365 in there, upgraded version of OneDrive, upgraded version of at least some other services in there that people go, okay, I'll
All right.
pay for Ultimate because it gives me everything I need.
Right.
I don't have to pay for that anymore. And then, I just pay the upgrade fee every year, whether it's, $49 a year or whatever the price may be, but you're getting the Windows package, and that package flows all the way down to your Windows Phone. And I think but it all depends on Windows 9. How well people go, whoa, this is great, and this is what Microsoft should have done all the way.
Isn't that always funny too? Like,
Yeah.
well, it's what they should have done like 10 years ago before we had the infrastructure for cloud services to be able to do this. They should have invented everything and then made it, and then I would have bought it because then it would have been worth it. Then it would have been good enough.
Yeah,
I love having that
yeah, yeah.
conversation with tech
Um,
geniuses.
Lou Rod has a comment. He said,
Oh yeah.
I'm Samsung to scale back the release of all the trash and worry about the high end."
Okay. Some tough words from Lou Rod. Lou, I don't. Okay, so I want to be careful here because I actually have a pretty good relationship with Samsung. It's a little hot and cold sometimes. Sometimes they reply to my emails and sometimes they don't. Um, I don't disagree. I think I might just disagree with the phrasing because I feel Samsung is missing out on vital growth opportunities by ignoring the entry level the way that they are. And I think their focus on the mid to high end is doing them a disservice because I don't think mid-range phones are going to sell as well once we start having a glut of $80 to $150 phones that work almost as well as $300 to $400 phones, and the $500 to $700 phone market is pretty well mature. There's always still growth there, but you're not blowing up this market anymore. It's just steady growth. It's not exponential growth.
I think Samsung needs to apply a Nokia/Nexus approach. The reason I say Nokia is this. They kind of do it and they kind of don't. Nokia has the same design platform for all their phones. As you can see with the 930 that just came out, it's the Icon. The 1520 is the only one that's really large than everybody else. The 635 is the 520 from last year's shell. Everything's very similar. So your costs are low, number one.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing too is that you can see how well all those phones perform, and they somehow bring a little bit of a different flavor enough for you to go, okay, this is different from that. Then the Nexus approach. So the reason I say that is that if Samsung can keep their manufacturing similar in that kind of sense, at least across all these different variants they have, so the sizes and the flavors don't really change that much, but it's still a different phone. And then also bring the Nexus approach. So they have basically three tiers. You have your high-end Galaxy, right? That or whatever Galaxy S and the Notes, done. Then you have Samsung should actually release a Nexus competitor. Release a very good stripped down Galaxy device or Samsung phone. It's priced at $300. No carrier. And let's see how that stirs up the market. If Samsung were to actually put just some of the brains and say, let's strip down some of the stuff in the Nexus competitor, you don't need the motion controls, you don't need any of that stuff. You just want a functioning Samsung phone with maybe S Health and a few other key Samsung things. Boom, done in there, right? That might be something that people go.
And that's where maybe I agree most. I mean, like with you and with Lou saying like we've got to take out the garbage here.
Yeah.
Is Samsung built the Galaxy brand on providing a totalitarian out-of-the-box experience.
Yeah.
You opened up a Samsung phone and you didn't really want for anything because there were Samsung solutions for basically anything that you might want to do on the phone until you start downloading very specific niche apps or games. I think that a good chunk of the vocal tech community, the sort of educated tech community, have gotten away from liking all of that stuff built into their phones from the get-go. And a lot of the criticisms we see on devices now are all about this bloat. Kind of forgetting that that's what made sort of the Galaxy line viable iPhone alternatives from the very beginning, is that Android was a very stark ecosystem and it was up to the manufacturers to make it more human or to make it more polished, to make it prettier. Yeah. So now we're kind of having that cycle back, and especially with those of us who are more educated about the tech landscape, we're really curious about phones like the OnePlus One and CyanogenMod and rooting and ROMing and tailoring the device to a greater degree. While I think that gets us some traction, I think it gets us some discussion, I still think a good chunk of the market are looking at those Samsung commercials and going, but yeah, I want that one feature, or I want this one thing, or I like this one skin, or I like these colors. And that's where I think more sales happen than trying to have a discussion about we took all this stuff out of the phone.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's true. I just think they can also reach that market, some of that market that lost, and say, okay, fine, here's Samsung you love. Like it's almost like just tell them, you know what, we have the ultimate all-in-one, but here's
Mhm.
a little throwback to where we started.
Totally.
If you sell it that way, it's like here's a little throwback,
Or
right?
I mean, like
And
even
you could just go to Samsung.com, pick it up right now. Forget it.
totally. No, and I think it's what Motorola was starting to build some momentum with.
Hmm.
Because you don't if you have a conversation with me and you say, well, we took out all this stuff because people were complaining about bloat, I'm gonna say, well, you failed.
Yeah.
You know. But if you come to me and you have a conversation about optimization and streamlining and we're going to improve efficiency, I'm going to be interested. And if you give me a platform like MotoMaker to embrace, some of the design language I get to decide on, I'm going to be super stoked. That's why I've been a little cranky that we haven't heard anything more out of Motorola since the announced Lenovo swap. Like they've
Yeah, yeah.
kind of chilled, and they were building up this great little bit of momentum right there in pushing forward just a conversation. If you didn't want the Galaxy S5, you didn't want an HTC One, you wanted something simple and efficient, something that was better optimized and performed almost as well as like super hardcore heavy duty processors, but because it was all about streamlining the affair, we don't have a company that's having a conversation like that in Android land right now. We just
No,
don't.
no, no, that's very true. But speaking of an Android company that may is switching ranks and going back to its big brother that had helped it in the past, HTC.
That was a good segue.
HTC,
That was smooth. I like that.
um, basically the what do you call it again? The invites have gone out for August 19th for HTC event. Hopefully we'll be there, and give you some coverage. But from all indications, it looks like we are going to be getting the HTC One M8 Windows Phone. Why don't you just call it HTC W8 for crying
Yeah,
out loud? I would go with
it,
W8. W8 is fine with me. It's
so
cool.
here's part of the problem is I just hate HTC One M8. Don't name the phone a number if that number is not going to change and you have to add stuff after the number. First of all, that's just crap. But because I've seen a couple different rumored names, and like I saw one, who was it, Chong, on one of the nation site on was it Windows Phone Central,
Hmm.
said that the rumored name could be the HTC One M8 for Windows, which is that's just a lot logically bad. It's a Windows phone. It's not for Windows. It's not a Windows accessory. I don't know. Anyway, but just
Yeah.
for all of you folks out there who are really into leaks, this is what the HTC One M8 running Windows looks like. Man, look at that. Look at this blurry sort of can't focus on it. Oh man, that's amazing. But so post
Well,
this on. Send this to EV Leaks. It's what it looks like. This is it. I've got it right here.
well, to
Look at
save
that.
you
Woo!
all that
Yeah.
blurriness, the image of the device posted up on Verizon's website.
Yeah,
So
the leak actually comes proper from Verizon, and that they did a pretty decent job in actually doing the render on this, because you'll notice that there's an HTC camera app and that there's a Blink Feed app and a TV app. So we'll see, hopefully, our first Windows phone with an IR blaster on it.
yes, and that goes back to my comment about the Windows Phone Update 1, which is going to also has the cover notification. So those covers and that notification is actually coming. The update is coming on the 12th or the 13th. I mean, for Windows Phone. And that will coincide with the launch of this device on the 21st. So that, some of those features, and this is what I was saying with Samsung, is that some of those features that you have in your thing, you can bring it over the Windows Phone. Windows Phone doesn't allow you to do skins, but it allows you to bring
Mm-hmm.
features over so that
Yep.
you don't bloat it up. You can actually, everything's just an application that is tied into the device, and that makes it, to me, just more sensible in there. And you know what? An M8 Windows Phone, not a bad idea to me. It all depends
Yeah,
on what the pricing is going to be, of course.
I think this is where maybe I'm a little nervous is that it is kind of difficult launching a flagship Windows phone right now because you pay a lot into developing it and you pay a lot into dropping it. And Windows phones don't sell as well as Android, so it's a little harder to recoup. Hopefully, economically, it makes sense because
Same
it's
hardware.
basically just the M8, so
Yeah.
you just slap new software on it, and we can hopefully make that transition over. I think this is one of the reasons, though, I was really hoping to see what the E8 was. I was hoping that would be the Windows Phone variant. So you can
Yeah.
make it out of an even less expensive material, and it's better for HTC. It's less risk, I should say, for HTC to release a Windows Phone that's a bit less expensive. And I also think that it helps them delineate their product lines. Like the M8 shouldn't be split up in a way that confuses consumers. And this is another thing I worry about with the aluminum M8 being split into two different product lines, where customers are going to go to and say, well, why is this one different than this one? Oh, that one's got the Windows on it, and this one has the Androids. That's a little tricky. I mean, I really want to believe that customers can understand that kind of nuance, but when they're getting educated by a rep at a cell phone store, that
Mhm.
might not be a discussion that comes out very well.
No, no, true, but I think also it goes with what you name it. If you call this a W8 and the M8, I think
Yeah,
that's much better distinction than you go in HTC One M8 for Windows. That's just stupid naming. I think
yeah,
firstly, if you go, this is the W8 and this is the M8, well, they look the same hardware, yeah, because the hardware is the same. HTC wants to, and again, you're right. Like me and you can probably explain this much easier than most people at the store to say,
hmm
hey, HTC wants to deliver the same hardware experience so that you don't lose anything out, whichever phone you pick, but it's whatever software preference you're looking for.
right.
And this does this and this does that, that kind of thing. Um, I'm fine with them with the M8 hardshell because, from indications, their sales have been going down, which means they have a stockpile of this thing sitting around.
I'm curious. I mean, like, if they've got a stockpile of these things sitting around, I don't think it's a situation though where you can take the already manufactured M8s for Android and switch them. Do you know what I mean? Like, the manufacturing process is probably complete to the point where packaging is kind of decided on and shipped.
Oh,
So, I mean,
true.
you know what I mean? Like, it's never just sort of like a one to one, like, oh well, I'll just flip a switch. But what I am curious about is, does this mean that those of us who like to tinker will eventually be able to flash our devices?
Yes, see that's the thing, yeah. Is it flashable? Probably. I mean, but it might be a very hard, painful process to do to do
Yeah.
something like that, altogether. So it is possible, but I do like. I mean, just looking at the image from Verizon, I love the fact that TV's in there and
hmm
blink feed. I actually like blink feed this way.
Yep.
This is so much more sensible because I can blow it up, but it just keeps rotating with all, and I don't have to actually have the side panel that I'm panning through,
Oh yeah.
for
Well,
blink feed.
and I like, it's silly. One of my most popular videos on my YouTube channel was on the M7, where I used Nova Launcher for my main launcher and then just had a shortcut to blink feed.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah.
way. I mean, like, this is kind of like the perfect execution of blink feed is on Windows
There's well, exactly, and that's and that's the thing I like about it. I'm like, I love to see that there. And the only thing I want is that camera needs to be the 13 megapixel camera in the 816 and not.
No, 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 no. I seriously doubt it will be if it's the same shelf
Yeah,
in
I
the
know, I
M8.
know, I know, I know. I'm just saying that I don't want because the camera in the M8 is spotty. It is spotty in the sense that in my own experience, I've gotten great photos and I've got crappy photos at the same time. Or at least photos where low light shots, it does a good job, and then daytime, I'm like, why is it
Yeah,
dark?
it's an odd beast. I've had mostly good experiences with the M8 camera, but it makes me cranky because I still think the camera in the M8 is good. It's going up against some incredible cameras. And if you've ever used a Nokia phone, you get spoiled on the camera
Yeah,
pretty
yeah.
quickly. So
You guys know our discussion when we talk about phones, and I go, "What's the camera in there?" Especially in our hangout chat with the other fellow YouTubers we know. I'm always
mhm.
like, you know what? If it doesn't have a Nokia camera in there, bust it. I'm out. I don't care.
Because even the 16 megapixel shooter that's packed into what's the very is it the E8 that has the 16 megapixel shooter?
I think it's the E8.
Yeah. Anyway, but we know like in the variants and especially like in the One Mini that'll be coming out, and that's obviously not going to have this dual
remix Verizon remix, not One Mini.
Thank you. But that's not even what's going to solve the issues with HTC's camera setup. It's really the supplement of throwing in something like optical image stabilization, or a significantly larger image sensor that really does improve the photographic experience. More megapixels. I still think in many situations the M7 camera can outperform the M8 camera because of optical image stabilization.
Yeah.
And so that's really what makes for a better experience, where you're more apt to get more consistent results out of a camera. And so that's where I think HTC is chasing red herrings, is because I think they're like, oh well, we'll give them a fun feature. And the dual camera setup on the HTC One is fun, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get better output than with like a Nokia's really large image sensor on a Nokia camera. And so then they're going to chase the marketing bullet point of throwing in more megapixels. Well, we see on the Galaxy S5, more megapixels don't mean that you're going to get better low light shots. It doesn't mean that you're going to get steadier video, because the video looks really shaky and jittery as it's trying to use electronic image stabilization to compensate for hand movements, and it cuts into your field of view. So you have a less wide angle shot because it's got a software crop in, and then it jiggles the frame through software to try and compensate. So you lose some of the view of that nice wide angle lens. That's where HTC is still falling behind on camera. It's like HTC and Motorola both seem to be completely incapable of looking at that data and saying like, well, what can we do to improve our camera? I don't know. Maybe if we made a new camera app, that'll work. And you're like, no, that's not. You're missing the point. You're totally missing the point.
Yeah, I know, definitely so. But I mean, I hope this goes well for them, and I hope that there is at least something, besides this transitioning the features, that at least they showcase that this does something different. I mean, I would pimp Blink Feed out now, just because I don't have to actually swipe anywhere, and it doesn't really interfere, and it's just like, oh, okay, that's cool information. Done.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing with like on the Galaxy S5 and the One M8. Putting a panel to the left of my home screens makes me cranky.
Yeah,
I don't like it, and it makes me turn right over to another launcher. Like I go back to Nova just because I like my three homes. I mean, and again, it's because I'm a creature of habit. I'm not saying it's the right or wrong way, but you taught me how to use Android in one way, and now you're sort of forcing this one panel to be separate from the rest of my home screens, and that's you're moving quickly, and we've all been there. You swipe through your home screens quickly.
Yeah, when you go to magazine on S5, you're like,
and then it lags because it's jumping into another piece of software where it's got to like update services using my data connection, and it's like that little hitch, that little moment where I can't get back out of it. Drives me crazy. Drives me nuts.
Definitely agree. But we will see the I'm gonna call it the W8. And please, HTC.
Well, and that was the other thing too, is how cool would the ad be if you like you came up with like the HTC One, the HTC One M8, and then the M just flipped in the commercial to the W. How sick would that be? Because that is so simple.
Exactly, you're bringing the filthy over now to Windows Phone. You're like, like exactly. I mean, it'd be simple, but so again, as always, we provide solid information for all these companies that don't pay us. So, here's another piece of information again, HTC. Listen, apply.
We're just giving out this advice for free, and you guys keep ignoring it. So.
Yeah, and just call it the W8, please. I beg you in the first place. I beg you, definitely. All right, so moving on from there, a couple other announcements this week, a couple of things. So this is now in the gaming sphere. Sony announced PlayStation Now beta is available. I still can't access it. I applied. I'm still waiting.
I can't either.
So we'll see, and when that happens, we'll get you videos, but still waiting for that. And EA announced the Access Hub. Now Sony refused EA's Access Hub because they said it wasn't beneficial for them, and EA's Access Hub is on the Xbox One. Microsoft took
Hmm.
the Access Hub because they don't have their own, PlayStation Now,
Right.
Xbox One Now service yet. I don't know. Have you taken a look at any of them or seen any ideas of? I know of how both work because I have used the Access Hub for EA. I just haven't used PlayStation Now. Just wondering if you have any thoughts on
Oh,
both.
I haven't play. I don't have an Xbox One, so I haven't been playing with
Okay.
EA service either
Let's see.
for monthly. It's $5 a month. Is that
It's
what it is?
$5 a month, 29.98. So I took a look at Access Hub, installed it. I was waiting for EA to send me a code, so I just did 1 month for 4.99. It's pretty easy, and again, it's taking the whole Windows approach. It's just an app. You go into the hub. Um, the only one sad part about it doesn't fully integrate into the marketplace, the proper marketplace itself, in the
Gotcha.
sense that if you went to the marketplace and so for instance the way the hub works is that you pay 29.90 a year or 4.99 and you have access to certain games for free. So right now you have FIFA, Madden, Battlefield, the latest Battlefield, the last one, all for free. You can install in your system, you're good to go in play, which is cool.
Hmm.
And say there'll be more games as you go on. Games that you can't get for free, you get a 10% discount. I wish it was 20% discount. I would really be more tempted to just impulse buy. You know, that kind of thing where it's like
Right.
10% goes from 59.99 to 53.99. I'm like, it doesn't. 20% will go, okay, I just lost, just took off close to $10 off this. Okay, I might buy the game, that kind of thing. So that's there. Now in their hub, you can go in. I installed FIFA. I was like, all right, I'm still in that World Cup mode, so let me just go ahead and install it. The problem is, like, say I went and say I looked at it at the hub and I said, okay, I'm going to install FIFA, but no, I'll do that later. But then I just went to my regular marketplace in the Xbox One for games. I can't do the same thing. It would just tell me to buy it.
Hmm.
So there's not that integration is not necessarily there to say because you already have Hub in your system, this is a game that you can just install and play and then install later. So it's that little hitch there, but it works very well and pretty simple.
Okay.
Once you get
So
into the Hub,
so especially listening to that, I guess I don't understand what PlayStation Now is bringing when their service, especially for game rentals, seems more like Blockbuster than Netflix.
yeah, the pricing
Where
for
because
sorry, go ahead.
and like and a lot of people claiming that PlayStation Now is too expensive, and I don't know, I might agree, but I also maybe just wonder if it's just not too complicated
It's
when you
it's
have like 2 hour rentals and then
It's a
week-long rentals
yeah,
and
it's a
then
4 hour rental is for 2 hours. I'm sorry. 4 hour rental is 4.99. The same price I have for a month on EA.
hmm.
Granted, EA has a smaller library, but I am
Right.
happy to sit down for 1 month, pay $4, beat Battlefield, and cancel.
Right.
Okay, that is a game that would cost. If you think about the math, right? I can play FIFA online with my friends, beat Battlefield, prepare for Madden in 1 month for 4.99 and cancel.
Yeah.
And all
Yeah.
three games cost 59.99. Meanwhile, on PlayStation
PlayStation.
Now, it's a 4 hour rental or 2 hour rental for 4.99. Who plays a game for 4 hours
Well,
and is done?
and also, I mean, like, is this? It's sort of almost like paying for some sort of demo or paying for some sort of preview.
Exactly. Definitely. That's what it is. And I like the idea of PlayStation Now. I was like, you're giving me the whole Sony catalog, and I can wait rents, and I'm looking at the rental. I'm going, wait, why don't you just make it Netflix? Even if you told me $50 a year for the
Hmm.
whole PlayStation catalog, that is a lot of games in there,
Yeah.
for a gamer, right? You're like, that is a lot of stuff you can go through. Then I can go, it might be a little higher because I'm playing for PlayStation Now and and I'm also playing PlayStation Now and also the online service. Then you might have to do a package where you pay $80 and then you get both or something like that. But I can still see myself doing something like that. But when it's four 99, I'm like, and I was reading a lot of investors saying, oh, PlayStation Now, the reason why Sony refused EA's things is because PlayStation Now is so much better. And I looked at the price and I'm like, Yeah, EA is nice, man. 29.99 is something that anyone would
Do
just
you
go like,
realize what you just did, Sony? You just made Annabong say EA is nice.
yes, yeah, that's it.
That's
I mean,
dangerous territory right there. Because
that
also in Joseph Hampton had a question: isn't the PlayStation Now more like streaming a game than downloading? And ideally, yes, but it's also still built on these old school notions of what a game rental should be. And I think when you start getting up into higher tiers, like you could do, I think you can do like a 90-day rental,
yeah.
but we still live in an age of discs, so that 90-day rental is probably going to cost you more than buying a game used.
Yeah, yeah, it is. And see, and I don't understand the logic there where, like I said, in my mind, even if I paid 29, if I went over and said, let me just increase it to 29.99 for the whole year, I can play Battlefield. Battlefield is one of the games I wanted to get into. A lot of people have asked me to get into it. I have like I don't want to buy it because I'm not a big Battlefield fan. I can take that risk-free notion of playing Battlefield, test it out, do as much as I want to, and only still pay 29.99 if that was the only game I purchased from EA for the whole year, and I'm done.
Yeah.
And yeah, the notion of that you don't own the game, you can't resell it. With digital games, you can't resell it anyway, so that's already
Right.
all your digital downloads are done. But with this one, and again, if you can think of it as you buying the used game, it's 29.99 anyway. So
Right.
it just really is funny that EA came up with even though they don't have a larger catalog, they came up with a better price service and said, well, Netflix does it well. Let's just copy that and just move on with our lives
Hmm.
and be done with. And Sony says, yeah, we'll charge you some. And I know they've talked about the pricing scheme will change. It's beta and things like that, but it really doesn't help gamers because it just sounds like you're trying to gouge them. It's almost like now they're going, we're back to being market leader, so let's double dip.
A little, yeah, and I think that's also one of the things that's frustrating about a monthly fee on top of something that you still need to pay per unit. It's either you do Amazon streaming video where you rent every movie, or you do Netflix where you pay one subscription fee and you have access to a whole catalog. You don't do both. So I guess I mean especially with people and this is another opportunity I'd like to reach out to folks who catch these videos is have you been playing with the PlayStation Now beta? Obviously I have not. Drop us some comments because I'd really love to hear what some people's experiences are. Like maybe the convenience of this is really a lot higher, or there are some other additional features that we're overlooking in what you get for that monthly subscription or
so
something. Because I'd be curious to know what other people's experiences are.
So this is what I'm looking at TNW's blog. They actually have gone through PlayStation Now. There's a couple of things they say. PlayStation Now offers 100 PS3 titles available. So there'll be PSN titles and eventually some PS4 titles. Looking at the screen here, you have flexible rental options. You can play with friends, freedom to choose the games you want. You have different rental time blocks: 4 hour rental, 7 day rental, 30-day rental, 90. 4 hours, stupid. 7, that is still very bad. 30 and 90 days are the ones that are sensible, but they say big budget titles like F1 2013 cost as much as 49.99 to rent a game.
Wow. It's not a rental, guys. That's not a rental.
And
Okay.
then the next comment
Sorry.
from TNW says, that is absurd considering you can buy the game for less than that right now.
Mm-hmm.
So this is just reading from
Yeah.
their reviews. Also, you need a solid broadband connection, roughly 5 megabits or better, to get going on PS Now. Sony recommends you have a wired connection, but it worked fine for me over Wi-Fi because his average home Wi-Fi is 16 megabits per second. That's the other thing too. If you don't have a solid network, which not everybody has. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm running high numbers here, but I mean, there are a lot of people who don't, and it costs
Mm-hmm.
you money to run those numbers anyway. That's going to add into it. So just
Yeah.
going through the review here, you can already tell that even he's kind of a little
I,
peeved
I
about it.
just because I ultimately want to side with a company that's going to help improve the gaming ecosystem, that's going to, give us some solution for gaming that's that's profitable for everybody, so that we
Yeah.
still see good games produced. Like I look at a company like Netflix and I see, like, you know what, Netflix does a really good job of turning people who would normally only download movies uh, through torrents, and it gives them a good alternative
To not do that.
to not do that. And we have these same fake debates in the video game industry too. So we've got to stop piracy by breaking all of our games with crippling copy protection schemes. Here's an opportunity to change how video game commerce works, and yet we're still thinking about like individual units and individual rentals like we did back in the 90s. So I don't know. I mean, it's hard for me to even discuss PlayStation Now in its current incarnation because it's a beta, but
Yeah.
the direction they're heading doesn't give me a lot of hope for improving that situation.
I would say this: if you're Microsoft, this is a big opportunity. Look at what you don't even have to look far. You're partnered with EA already with EA Hub. It's very simple. I can't complain because even my video only went for 4 minutes. I was trying to talk more, but I realized there's really nothing much to say other than it's $4.99 a month and it's $29.99 a year. Two options, that's it. And
Right.
then you can download the game you want to play, and you give you 10% on any other games. And I'm like, okay, all right, fine. That's what you need to do, or even improve on that if you want to improve. But that's a simple model that I think a lot of gamers will go, okay, Microsoft,
Okay.
I like, you know. And also, you could also attach in a lot of indie games in there. You know,
Yeah.
those are games that you think about it. I would like to see that also in the indie game market because they're not. There's the kind of games I probably might not purchase. I go, but if it's there and part of that, like Xbox, now Xbox, whatever they want to call it, Ultimate, I can go, okay, this makes sense, and I want to, I
Yeah,
just
and
want
that's
to,
and that's another
play
thing
some of
too,
those
is
games.
is I know it bugs people about Netflix, but it keeps you checking back in with their library when you know that movies don't live there forever.
Hmm.
So like, an indie game developer can strike a 1 year licensing agreement with the Xbox ecosystem, and so for 1 year their game is a part of this, and they worked out a fee to make sure that everyone was happy and that gamers could play that game for a year, and then after that year it's gone. Like then you would have to go and buy it, or you would have to like find some other way or means of playing that game. So again, it's this market is pretty well tested for film and TV. I would love to see it come over to video games proper.
Okay, here's the thing, and that's really funny and interesting. Just a quick one here. There's an image on TNW, and it's a screen capture from PS Now game streaming. Alone in the Dark, which came out only God knows how many years ago, is $4.99 for 90 days. Then you have Bionic Commando Rearm 2,
Mhm.
just says from 2.99. So that means from
Mhm.
2.99, I'm thinking from 2.99 for 4 hours.
Right.
So Alone in the Dark was a game released on disc, is $4.99 for 90 days. Bionic Commando, which is a digital download, is $2.99 for 4 hours.
Yeah. Yeah. And same thing with the Ben 10 Omniverse game is also going to be from 299 probably for a 4 hour rental.
Yeah, so there's lots there that I don't know. It doesn't make a lot of sense there, but
You know what? And I appreciate what they're doing when they're trying to talk about flexible rental options and stuff, like the freedom to choose. The thing is, it's just overly complicated. It's
yeah, it
it's
is.
it's too difficult. I mean, even if the pricing were good, which I'm not even sure I can make an argument for why this pricing might ever be in someone's best interest, but even if that's how you want to spend money on games, it's just too complicated.
Yeah, it is. We're probably gonna just wind down and round up soon, but I wanted to incorporate more entertainment here because we love our
Oh
comic
yeah, let's do
books
it.
and we love our movies and all that stuff. And we actually before we even started, because there's one I wanted to ask you, but we have a couple of comments here. So, you've seen Guardians, right? And
Yup.
I've seen Guardians. Exactly. And we're not going to spoil this for you. Not going to spoil it for you, but we have a comment here from Blue Road 76. He says, Guardians of the Galaxy was really good, and the 3D was good as well. Thanks for the movie review, Thunder. Thank you very much. But your quick synopsis of Guardians of the Galaxy as we move forward, so we won't spoil it for anyone.
Okay, so you guys have heard me bitch and complain about DC's track of making every superhero super dark and edgy and gritty. So, so happy that Marvel delivered a bright, colorful, quirky, wacky superhero film that was still action packed. I mean, you had some pretty decent action in it, and with a little bit of heart. Like you actually, it was an intro movie. It introduced an entire team of comic book characters. We didn't need to do the Avengers build up for Guardians of the Galaxy. It was just one movie. We got their origins, we got their backstory, we got a climactic finale that was a lot of fun, and it was kind of silly and it was kind of goofy, but you still cared about what happened to these characters throughout the movie. I would love to see Marvel continue doing more fun, lighthearted fare with this universe, and that allows us to keep the Avengers films a little darker, a little more serious, a little more grounded. And then there are the potentials of crossing some of these characters over into each other's respective. I mean, it's all one universe, but into the respective storylines of what's happening there. That makes me so happy. I had a blast with the film. I thought it was a lot of fun, and the few small logic and plot holes that pop up throughout the film they were easy enough to overlook, considering how much fun my wife and I were having watching the film. And the soundtrack is friggin' hot. The soundtrack is amazing.
I love the soundtrack in that. I you said, like, if you guys have seen my review, I love the movie. There's one gripe I have with every Marvel movie that I'm gonna have to do a video on. And I'm just gonna state it now so we can discuss this later. But I don't get a sense of ability or power from any Marvel characters when they fight. I hate it. I actually hate it. It's just the movies are good enough and entertaining. The reason why I say that is when you watch it, you're going to see Drax the Destroyer, and he doesn't behave like a destroyer in my mind. Just case closed there. I don't.
I'll completely agree with you, because I think that's the one positive thing I'll ever have to say about Man of Steel is that it felt like they had the right gravity for how powerful these beings were, and it was really the first time I think we'd ever seen it in movie form, just how outclassed humanity is fighting Kryptonians.
Yeah.
Only way it's ever happened. But and Drax, I'm glad you brought that up, because Drax is one element where he seems impossibly powerful in some scenes and then completely outclassed by his opponents in others. And it's written somewhat inconsistently, and it's for the plot. That's why they have to do it that way, or else the movie would be over too soon. But that is definitely something I'll agree with, where I think the closest we've gotten might be Captain America. Like, I think Captain America seems appropriately balanced.
Yes, exactly. The second Captain America movie this year
totally
had more of that balance to me. But I'll discuss that. I'll do a separate video to discuss that. That's fine. But I definitely recommend go watch the movie. You know, it's one of the movies I would definitely watch.
And if you leave before the credits are done, you're an idiot. We shouldn't need to explain this by now. We're in the middle of a screening of full of Marvel fans, and people still left during the credits. I mean, how dumb?
Yeah,
how dumb do you have to be?
Leroy asks, how do you think they'll bring Avengers and Guardians of the Galaxy, GT, into Part 3? I would say some elements. I'd say probably Star-Lord, of course, and maybe Gamora, just because. And maybe Rocket, just because, you need some of that.
You know what I think it might be? Is it might be on just what villain. I mean, if we finally get a Thanos movie, where Thanos is the main villain, then it makes sense to just put the Avengers and Guardians and everyone else in the Disney Marvel universe together.
Yeah.
That I think will really decide when we finally have a crossover. I doubt they'll start doing, Thor and Rocket team up for a film. But if there's a villain that makes sense, that sort of crosses all of those areas, then that's where we'll see it.
I am Groot.
Yeah, there's actually a pretty funny video that because it's only 3 words, so you think maybe Vin Diesel recorded it once, but there is a video you can find of Vin Diesel doing the Groot sessions, because he actually has quite a bit more to scream
Yeah, true. Although he did mention how the James Gunn basically wrote "I am Groot" and what he was supposed to be saying at that time
Exactly.
to give him a lot of inflection into how he says "I am Groot" in there. So that was pretty cool to hear that. Lou Rod also points out that Fantastic Four production, yes, just wrapped. That
Yeah.
sounds too soon. Makes me wonder if this film is worth my time when it comes out. Remember, yeah, the shooting of this movie started in April or May, I
Yeah, it's a
think.
really fast turnaround.
Yeah.
So here's the thing is I was not a fan of the first two Fantastic Four films. I know that Fantastic Four is often looked at as sort of a slightly more kid or family friendly fare in the Marvel universe. But just the fact that they're rebooting this means that I'll be interested to see what the trailer looks like, and that's where I'll be able to make some decision as to whether or not it's worth my time. But you're right, Lou. It doesn't instill a lot of confidence, but hopefully it just means that they had an efficient production schedule and they didn't go over budget or they didn't run long.
Yeah, I mean, you guys know I have no faith in this. I'm still going to review it and watch and review, but just because of all the different comments I've heard and the way the casting is set up and the fact that it's not going to use anything at all from the comics, including the origin, so I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, it'll be one of those. But moving to the topic, did you see the two things I want to ask you? I put one in there. Did you see the Deadpool
Oh
screen
yeah,
test?
the teaser. Yeah, yeah, the all CG test render of
It
Ryan
was
Reynolds
motion.
as
Actually, it
Deadpool.
was mocap. Actually,
Well, yeah, but I mean it was all CG.
CGS. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, so I mean, and that's another thing too, is where you can they've shown some of the I think not the video, but some of the
just the
stills,
image. Yeah.
yeah, of Ryan Reynolds in mocap suits. Um, yeah, it looks like it's on the right track. I mean, that looks like what a Deadpool movie should feel like. I think the beginning of it's difficult because we're talking about a teaser and it's not really movie grade footage in terms of how they're blending live actors in mocap situations with CG elements. Because there's sort of a slightly Agent Smith quality to everyone in the teaser. But I think it's the right idea for what a Deadpool movie should look like. I think they got a little too cheeky cheesy with how he's talking to the camera at the very beginning of the teaser. But
You see, no, I actually like that because Deadpool
no,
does a
I like
lot
him
of that
breaking the
too.
fourth wall. What I mean is you have to have some really good jokes to do it.
Yeah, true.
And it's hard to establish the character breaking the fourth wall when a lot of people don't know a lot about Deadpool to then have him telling jokes directly to camera. I just felt wasn't the right way to start off. I mean, like I like the idea of breaking the fourth wall as a reveal. You know, like not to spoil it if you haven't seen it by now, that's your bad. But how Francis Underwood breaks the fourth wall in Game of Thrones. I mean, not Game of House of Cards. Sorry, in House of Cards. In the first episode of the second season, he doesn't address the audience at all until the very end, and it's a reveal, and it's actually kind of shocking. Both my wife and I were like, "Oh, that's back, yes!" And so there's something about Deadpool that we know he does that. There's a build up or an anticipation, but when you start it off that way, and the joke really isn't that funny when he's just talking to us directly. He's just being wacky, goofy guy. That's really my only criticism of the teaser, and I can't be too critical of a teaser that probably really wasn't meant
No,
for
yeah, it
us
wasn't
to
meant
see.
for us
So
at all. So I'll put that point because I posted it up. It was released to the public. Now it's taken off.
yeah,
So the video is gone
but I think
completely.
it definitely shows that we want a Deadpool movie. I
Oh
want
yes.
a Deadpool movie,
So
and
Fox.
how that and the action sequence that they used to show off Deadpool being a smartass was perfect. That's exactly what I want to see. But it's got to be rated R. We can't do this Spawn BS of making it sort of a hard PG-13. It betrays the character is an NC-17 character living in a rated R world.
Yeah.
So if we don't get a rated R film, then I think it's a disservice
There
to
was it.
and it's a missed opportunity.
Okay. And then the other one was did you catch the Batman Superman 40-second clip?
Oh, actually, no, I haven't seen that yet. I was gonna
That
fire it up this morning. So.
that now I don't think you're going to see it anymore. I think everybody has taken it down
Oh no,
completely.
I actually I pulled it. So I haven't watched
Oh,
it yet, but I
okay.
I
Yeah, all
ganked
right.
it.
all right, cool. Then I guess next week you give us your thoughts on that together. Um, but but that pretty much won Comic Con for WB. I couldn't believe 40 seconds could actually
Yeah.
just wreck everyone's mind in there. So anyway,
Well, and especially the stills that we saw before the video dropped, and I haven't seen the video yet, but the
oh
stills that we
yes,
saw of the Batman armor and some of those scenes. Yeah, I'm on board that showdown. I've
okay.
been
What
wanting to see
about
that showdown since I first saw since I first read that comic.
Gal Gadot in costume? What do you think?
Um, I really like the costume design. I'm still a little nervous. Again, it's gonna come down to how they do the choreography and how they present her as a fighter, because she's skinny. She's obviously been working out, and
Yeah.
she's put on some mass from,
Do,
especially
okay,
from her Fast and Furious
I'll give
days.
you this. I'll give you this, right? And which no one will admit. She's bigger than Gamora. She actually is.
It'd be hard to say off of this one photo, but I wouldn't be surprised if you're right. But
Is
the
all
thing
the good
about
fighting choreography? Are you all right with that though?
yeah, no. See, but that's where I get spiky about. Okay, so this is part of a longer discussion. We should do a whole video on this because the way we present female superheroes is really inconsistent and it's really dicey. And so Gamora also fits into the same discussion that you were having about Drax,
Yeah.
where she's written super inconsistently in how powerful she is. It's never explained, oh, she's 5 times the strength of a human, because then they would have to hold to that. And then it wouldn't make sense if a human were ever able to, like, give her a problem. And so
Yeah.
there are some times where she's doing impossibly superhuman stunts, and there are some times where Star-Lord can, like, get her in an armbar. Like, you start having really big problems with
Yeah.
that. Wonder Woman should be as powerful as Superman, just in pure physical strength. So we know that there's a threshold for how brutal Wonder Woman should be.
Yeah.
Gamora is sort of a wide open, nebulous, vague character. So we don't know, is it that she's as powerful as a Colossus or Thor, or is she a Captain America powered character? We don't know.
Yeah.
And so that's frustrating because we just want to put her in a category. You just want to put her in a box and say she should be able to beat Captain America, but she should lose to Iron Man. Like we want to know that.
Yeah, no,
So
that's very true. Yeah.
Looking at Wonder Woman, it's going to come down to, God, I keep forgetting her name, the Kryptonian from Man of Steel.
Fiora.
Yeah. Thank you. So how they did. What's that? She has to be on par. Yeah, she has to be on par with Kryptonian. Yeah. So how they did the choreography and the special effects for Fiora, as long as they hold to that aesthetic, I think we'll see a cool Wonder Woman with Gal Gadot.
Yeah.
Where we start looking at female superheroes that don't seem to perform like they should, it often comes down to the choreography and the wire stunts, and we try and make women do these really graceful, flippy, dancey things when they shouldn't be doing that if they're commiserate, if they're capable or as strong as their male counterparts. Wonder Woman is as strong as Superman. It needs to be fast, brutal, hard, direct forms of combat. It can't be graceful, light, dancey, flippy. Then you have Wonder Girl, not Wonder Woman.
So no Fu Wong Chu.
But if we can glean anything from that press photo, is that we've got the right costume. It's a grounded, somewhat realistic, and then a more Spartan costume as opposed to just putting her in spandex.
Oh yeah, I was so happy with her
pants or something like that.
I saw that. I was like, and somebody was like, "It's like Xena Warrior." I'm like,
Yes.
So
yes, that's exactly what it should be if she's an Amazonian, sort of based out of weird Greek myth and super powered. And also, I mean, not to get too political, but I sort of agree with Gloria Steinem. Is she doesn't wear this outfit to be attractive. That's not the point. The point is she's a soldier. She's a brawler. Her body is functional. And so she would wear the outfit that best complements her fighting style, not, I'm going to cover up and be modest because that's what people would expect of a woman. I'll wear pants. That's not the point of a character like Wonder Woman. The character of Wonder Woman should be the most brutal, powerful female character in the DC universe, and that's how she chooses to fight without armor on. Then that's how she's gonna fight.
Yeah. Definitely. All right, let's wrap up this fire through some of the comments and questions here, and then we'll announce the giveaway for this video, and then we'll wrap up. I said wrap up first time. So anyway, continue. Lou Rod 76, and his photo has Hydra in there. Ooh, Lou Rod, really? Mark Miller says Fox's Marvel universe is equal to Marvel Studios universe. He says I disagree. I agree with you. It does not compare.
No, I mean they've got some good IP, but I think Disney has made better choices with their IP and has built a model that now every other studio is trying to replicate.
Right. Yeah. Joseph Hampton says I got the M7 and I used the IR blaster for TV. True.
Yeah.
Good choice.
In fact, my M7 because we're probably looking at turning my M7 into just the dedicated remote for the living room.
That's
not plugged in by the coffee table and just be like it'll control it. And especially with our Chromecast, we're back to using a Chromecast for most of our media streaming. And,
it does control. It controls everything.
I know that's got to piss off some people who actually really like that phone, but that's probably just going to be our new universe.
And then Joseph Hampton also says, would this have been a better market for GameStop or someone who has a game rental store? Talking about PlayStation Now. No. I really like the Netflix approach. It feels like you're getting more as a consumer.
Well, and also it's not how GameStop makes money, and we've seen if they wanted to, they probably could have just bought out GameFly. If that's what they wanted to do, if they wanted to make a Netflix-like solution for game rentals, and they haven't. They haven't done anything that even remotely approaches that.
Speaking of GameFly, I'm surprised they haven't done something like this themselves. I mean, I know they're smaller. I mean, but this is something that they need to jump in and start, thinking about. A monthly service, online digital service like this. Blue Rod says, guys, watch Expendable 3. You've watched the leaked copy.
Gotta be careful. We're dealing with a very litigious movie studio and distribution studio. So
yeah,
if you're gonna make that play, use protection.
yeah. But he says it was really good, and I felt it was better than the first two. Okay, so at least you're giving them solid marks. All right.
No, I'm actually I like the Expendables movies. They're like Looney Tunes cartoons for grown-ups who like ultra violence. So I'm on board Expendables 3, but actually working in Hollywood, I'm wanting to give it my opening weekend dollars. So I'll be waiting until it's officially out and in theaters before I catch
it. Joseph Hampton says, need to see her in the role before I make final judgment, with reference to Gal Gadot. And Lou Rod says, do you think Lucy making good money will open up Marvel for a Black Widow movie? I just saw a statement from Kevin Feige, and he says, the line says, this is from Superhero Hype, Kevin Feige hopes female lead Marvel roles will come sooner rather than later. Just make it and stop talking. I mean, the fact that WB started late and we have Wonder Woman, fine, it's not her main movie, but the fact we have her, not Black Widow, which we've kind of built up because we like the character and we forced it up there. Just make a movie, guys.
Yeah, there's this notion, it's a fake debate. It's a fake conversation to say we can't. The audiences aren't ready for a female superhero movie, or people aren't going to respond. What more conversation do you need than saying it's a movie with Scarlett Johansson in the Black Widow suit?
This is what was trending on Twitter Saturday Comic-Con. I believe Wonder Woman Gal Gadot was #1 on Twitter then. And then he eventually got surpassed by Batman Superman footage. But it was that 1 and 2. Worldwide, not US, worldwide.
Worldwide.
So if worldwide people, not women, everyone is going, okay, that looks good. We need to see this movie.
And you're not going to find a better with Wonder Woman, you're not going to find a better crossover character for getting men and women to go see a movie. Black Widow has taken off. She's a very popular character. So to not give her some type of property I feel you're missing out on an opportunity. Now, I also kind of hope that we'll get a standalone Nick Fury film before Sam Jackson starts getting too old to be doing really rough stunts and stuff. But there's opportunities there to do, spies and espionage, and to take a piece of the Marvel universe and start doing more James Bond style
Uh,
intrigue with it. And Black Widow is a perfect character to exploit
I,
for
I I
that kind
think
of
I
story.
think the Nick Fury movie won't come. I think it would be a Black Widow Hawkeye movie. It would just be called Black Widow, basically her being the star vehicle. But then they might go to that. Remember how she says I have the red in my ledger and that
Right.
storyline, all that. That could be it, and that's
Yeah.
just focusing on those three characters. And at least you have, in my mind, two very strong characters with Black Widow and Nick Fury, and then Hawkeye. Yeah.
Oh, but Jeremy Renner is still one of my favorite performers.
I
You've got to do something with Hawkeye to get him to get him into the same place where we're at with Black Widow. He's kind of in there almost for comic relief at this point.
Yeah, but he's not that funny.
Mm-mm.
That's the thing.
No.
So okay, and then okay, there's a couple comments here. I thought Moto was making the Nexus 5.9. That's rumors. We don't know if that's coming out.
I don't know. I don't see the only thing that makes me a little edgy about Moto making a phablet is we've seen from other companies making a phablet is really tricky. You've got to have a really good reason for going up to that larger screen size. You have to be providing some solution or some service. HTC couldn't figure it out with the One Max. Samsung sort of started the conversation off, so I think they've still got the best handle on why you go up to that bigger screen size.
Yeah.
And Moto hasn't done anything like that for a while, where they pushed the envelope on making a really big screen device. So if they were making a Nexus, I really wish they would make a more traditional flagship phone Nexus. I think that would be a safer play, but that's just me being cranky.
All right, cool. And one more thing, and this will actually lead to our question. So I don't know if you guys noticed, Facebook was down for a lot of people yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, this is the week. This is the first time Facebook ever was crippled. No official word on why or what. So my question to you is, since Facebook was down, what did you do? That's the question.
Answer that question.
That's
What
it.
what did you fill your time with
That
instead
way.
of
Yeah,
finding
since the thing that fills up half of our time as human beings was down for a little bit, what did you do? Again, to enter into the contest, you have to subscribe to Board at Work and Some Gadget Guy, as well as BW1, since he wasn't here today. And subscribe to all three channels. The links will be down there for you in the description of the video. And also, just leave a comment telling us, what did you do when Facebook went down yesterday? I think it was Friday it went down, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Friday. So basically, this past Friday, Facebook went down. What did you do? Were you scared? Did you run? Did you think there was a zombie attack? I mean, it could be anything. And you get to win this iPhone 6 case. This is for the 4.7-inch iPhone 6. So just letting you know, it looks like there'll be two sizes, but this is a 4.7-inch iPhone 6 case from Spigen. It's a black case. Pretty cool. And you can get it early. So let us know. Otherwise, thank you very much, guys, for joining us. Thanks for all the questions and comments. Thank you very much, Juan, for all the fun commentary. I would like to ask you what you have for viewers next week quickly as we round up, just so they know what they can expect on the channel.
Yeah, we this last week was all about LG G3 coverage. We've got some accessories coming out, some new cases, and then I also have a couple tips and tricks videos coming out just for Android and Windows Phone fans. I got some really fun stuff coming up, and then the beginning of next week, because I just hit 10,000 subscribers, we're going to be doing a giveaway on the Some Gadget Guy channel. So definitely check in for that. And the first episode of Wayback will hit at the end of the week, and Wayback is the new segment we're going to be doing on Gadget Guy to revisit gadgets longer, so like 6 months into using a gadget, a year into using a gadget. And the first phone that I'm going to talk about is actually at the end of what would have been a 2-year contract. And so I want to talk about, did it live up to what the manufacturer said it could do? Did it survive the 2-year contract? And then what my experiences were using it over this length of time.
Okay, that's pretty cool. So definitely stay tuned for Wayback. Okay, Okay, stop with the special effects.
It's excellent Foley. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I'm going to sample it out of this video and use that as the sound effect for my title crawl.
Yes, and we will have a bunch of videos for you this week. Some case reviews, some PC builds. We have 2 coming up, hopefully this week, if it's enough time. And also the Can-Am video. Yes, we've been talking about that for weeks now. And the Can-Am Spider, which is basically tricycle. I don't want to call it tricycle. A 3-wheeled motorcycle. So we'll have that for you this week. Promise we will have it this week. But again, thank you very much, guys. Don't forget to subscribe to both channels. Some Gadget Guy. It's Some Gadget Guy on YouTube. SomeGadgetGuy.com is the website, and those are his Twitter and Facebook handle is all on the website. I know they're a little different, but you can check it out at somegadgetguy.com. And also Booredatwork.com is our channel, is our website, and Booredatwork the YouTube channel. So this is Thunder E saying thank you, and always enjoy your entertainment.
Bam.